We have one assignment that I gave you, and it's about the sum of two squares. Now, what were the questions for, involving the sum of two squares so far that we've done? So we have the sum of two squares, and the answer would be a triangular number. We have the sum of two squares, the answer would be a rectangular number. And we also have a sum of squares, and the answer would be a prime number. So we covered all of those, right? Can somebody give me an example, or have you forgotten? Okay, let me just have a quick review. And then see what happens. So last time, yes, we did this, and let's see if you can remember. So I'd like to draw this figure, and so if I have a line and I divided them into three lines, yes, this one line I split them into three parts, yes, so I make two marks.
Edwin, do we copy this down?
Not this one, I'll tell you later on what we need to do.
Okay.
And then if I have another line that's been split into four parts, right, these two, and I square both of them. So when I square both of them, that means I copy this exact line here, the first line, so I square them, and I square the other one, so, and I square this one, and then I connect all those marks, right? And this one I also do the same. I square this and copy the marks, I square this and I copy the marks, and I square this and I copy the marks, and then connect all the marks inside. Now, if I add them, if I add these two squares, what's the answer? The answer is 25. So here I can draw a big, the answer is 25. So initially I could draw a big a square here, split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. So the answer here is 25. Thank you so much. Now, this is essentially done like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not an accurate drawing, but I don't want you to be waiting for a long time as I draw this. Now, I asked this as homework before. So what was the title of this topic when we did it? What was one of the questions in one of the homework? So here, it says here that the square of this number and the square of this number equals another square. And some of you gave an example. So I'll do this in terms of number. So here the original line is, this one, the original line is 3. We square this, the answer is 9. The original line here has 4 parts. 4, we square 4, that's how I did in here, I square 4. The answer is 16. If we add these two squares, 9 and 16, the answer is 25. And if we look at the original line of 25, yes, the original line is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 splits. And that is the square of 5 is 25. So, the square of 3 and the square of 4 equals the square of of 5, and all of them are square numbers. Now, I'd like to show you some of the homeworks that you did. Right? I'd like to show you, and I'd like to start presenting now. Let me just have a quick... Right, here it is. So, can everybody see this? Here's an example of one of your classmates. This numbers 3 and 4, right? That you square two numbers and the answer is a square number. Now, this person used many numbers, like, squaring 3 numbers right here, right? And squaring 4 or even 5 numbers. This is also possible, but it's a different question, right? It's a different question. But that's a good example as well. Now, this one is another one. Here's an example. The square of 5 is 25. The square of 12 is 144. If you add these two, you have 169, which is a square number, right? So, thank you for that. And the same in here, the square of 12 and the square of, what's this? What? It's probably 16, right? It's 4, if you add these two together, it's 400, which is the square of 20 squared. So that's numbers 3 and 4. Now let me look at another one. Now this one, numbers 3 and 4, yes, and it's good always to write the original question. Give an example of two squared numbers added together to make a square number. And here's another example. 9 square is equal to 81. 12 square is equal to 244, and you have 225. Now, is 225 a square number? Right? That's a question. Now, here's another example. 3 squared is 9. 10 squared is 100. The answer is 109. Now, is 109 a square number? Yeah. How do you know? So that's a question I'm asking. And there is another example here. 3 square and 4 square is 25. And that's the example I just did on the board now. Now this one is 8 square is 64. And 6 square is 36. So if you add those, would they equal 100? Yeah. So 64 plus 36. 64 plus 670. Yes, that's 100. Yeah, so that's a good example there. Okay. So that's what have we been doing. And this lesson, this idea has been around for the last 2,000 years, or at least around 2,500 years ago. And almost all children in the world who goes to school around the world encounter this. So there's not only you, like billion, I reckon at least a billion students are learning this. And more than a billion even. And so, but where did this idea come from? Who started the whole thing? And this is now how I'd like you to take the notes. It's basically who popularized the idea that the square of one number and the square of another number is equal, yeah, to the square of another number. So the sum of two squared number is equal to a square number. So that's essentially the idea. And this person was really, oh, somebody has just came in. Welcome. Okay, so this idea of the sum of the square of two numbers is equal to square number started 2,500 years ago. And it's essentially um, started with the person in the name of Pythagoras. Now, I know that from last year you talked about this person, but I'd just like to say this, that Pythagoras is really a person who was interested in all sorts of things. Now, there is this story about him, and the story is this, that he was walking around and he saw a man beating a dog, right? He saw a man beating a dog. And then he went to this man and said, "Stop, don't beat the dog." And of course the person said, "Why? What's the problem?" And Pythagoras said, "I know that the soul of that dog is used to be a friend of mine." So in a way, Pythagoras believed in this idea of many lives, particularly the idea that your soul can be an animal or a plant in the next life. Now that's a particular view of reincarnation, and not everybody believes that. Yeah, a particular view, and some people say that that's a wrong view of reincarnation. Yeah. But that's not what we're here for. It's an interesting discussion. Now, when Pythagoras talks about the soul, what is that? Right? And you then suddenly realize that people have a different understanding of the soul. And it's a good discussion point, yeah, when later on in class 11 or class 12, people talk a lot about that. Okay, so essentially, yeah, Pythagoras is a believer in reincarnation. So as a growing person, his teacher advised him to go to different countries and learn from different people. And not only that, he has to look for certain people, right? Not just anybody. And these people that he looked for and he wanted to be taught are basically the priest or priestess of different religions. And so Pythagoras went to India, he went to Egypt and learned from the priest in Egypt, learned about their philosophy, their beliefs, and he even went to ancient Mesopotamia and learned from the people there too. And so when he went back to his hometown in the island of Greece called Samos, and he wanted to really share what he knew from his travels, he discovered that people are not very receptive to his idea. And so he went away and traveled to southern Italy, and in there he created his school. And not only it's a school, it's called a brotherhood. And not only it's a brotherhood, it's a secret society. And in the secret society, they have weird practices. And one of them is you are not allowed to tread or eat beans, right? Because the brotherhood, they call it the Pythagorean brotherhood, they were kind of vegetarians. So they were the first vegetarians, or they're one of the pioneers of vegetarianism, this brotherhood, this secret society. And before you could enter the society, you have to practice active silence. Now, what is this active silence? It's that what you learn there, and is you are not allowed to divulge. You are not allowed to say anything. And if you don't pass the test of active silence for 5 years, you are not allowed in the secret society. And the other ones that they do a lot is they study the four major practices that the modern world work now are studying, and they are called arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. So these are the four major studies aside from all the other topics about philosophy and the world. And so there is this story that the square of one number and the square of another number, if you add them together, equals the square number. And this is what is presented in here. And when he discovered this, he was overjoyed. He was so happy. And he was so happy that he celebrated. And in those times, when you celebrate something, you kind of have a feast. And there is this story that he slaughtered 100 cattle, 100 cows, when he discovered this idea. Think about it. Discovering an idea and celebrating like that. But I know, and I think this one is not quite true, because they were vegetarians. How could they slaughter a 100 cows when they're vegetarians? And some people say that actually they made cows out of flour and then slaughtered them. Yeah, that's the story. And flour, yeah. It's like when you're in kindergarten. Yes, you made you bake bread and form them into animals and bake them. It's like that. Okay, so but this idea that Pythagoras have is applied to the property of triangles. Now the idea is this, right? And I like to show this because you've done this before. Yeah, you've done this before. So take note of those three lines here. Yeah, those three lines. He forms this into a triangle. So if this is these three lines, let me write it below here. So this line in here is into three parts. Yeah, and this line in here, he connects them to this. Right? So this is like that. And he says that if you square this, so here we square this one here. If you square this, yes, and connect all of those lines here, those two parts, and you square this, there you go. If you add this, it's equal to, yes, the square of this. So essentially, the answer should be this. Right? So this should be split into 5 parts, right? And then you square this here. And then you got essentially this. So the square of this and the square of this is equal to this. So let's just, I'll just count because I know for some of you it's not very clear. So here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, which is this. So 9 plus 16 equals 25, which is this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Yeah, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, which is this. So the square of this and the square of this is equal to this. And this is now known throughout the world as pi. It's not very clear. Through the world as Pythagoras or Pythagorean Theorem. And essentially, if we don't know the side, if this is side A, so if this is side A, and this is side B, and this is side C, it will be the square of A plus the square of B, right, is equal to the square of C. And this is essentially known as the Pythagorean Theorem, and you just have to write that and people will understand.